I am now going to read chapter 23 of Baron Trump's Marvellous Underground Journey. Lord Hothead again, and this time a fuller account of him. His wondrous tales concerning the Culticorps, where they came from, who they were, and how they managed to live in this world of eternal frost. The many questions I put to him, and his answers in full. Lord Bullybrain was never allowed to set foot inside the Palace of Ice. King Galadas, backed by the opinion of his favorites, still indulged this belief that he would be able, in the end, to refrigerate him. True, he had been many years at the task, so that it had now become a sort of hobby of his, and almost daily did his frigid majesty pay a visit to his hot-headed subject and test his temperature by pressing a small ball of ice against his temples. To King Galadas' mind, a man of so high a temperature was a continual menace to the peace and quiet of his kingdom. What if Lord Hothead, in a dream, should wander forth some night and fall asleep with his back against one of the walls of the ice palace? Might he not melt away enough of it to throw the whole glorious fabric into a slump and slush of debris? It was terrible to think of, when he did think of it, and he thought of it quite often. But Bullybrain had no terrors for me, nor for Bulger either. In fact, Bulger was delighted to be stroked by a warm hand, and he and Bullybrain and I soon became the very best of friends. But his frigid majesty was so alarmed when he heard of this friendship that he was seized with quite a spasm of warmth, for, thought he, the united heat of the three hotheads might work some terrible harm to the welfare of his people. So he issued the coldest kind of decree, carved on a tablet of ice, that Bullybrain and I should on no one day pass more than a half an hour together, that we should never touch palm to palm, sleep in the same room, eat from the same dish, or sit on the same divan. These regulations were annoying, but I followed them to the letter. And when King Geldas saw how careful I was to yield the strictest obedience to his decree, he conceived a genuine affection for me and sent several magnificent pelts to the ice house, which had been assigned to Bulger and me, and for, of course, it would not have been safe for us to lodge in the palace itself. But his frigid majesty held out the flattering prospect that the very moment Bulger and I should become properly refrigerated, apartments in the palace would be assigned to us, and in fact, that I should be permitted to eat at the royal table. Who were the Culticorps? Where did these strange folks come from? How did they ever find their way down into this world of eternal frost? And above all, where do they get their food and clothing from? These were a few of the questions which I was so impatient to have answered that my temperature was raised a whole degree, and I was obliged to sleep with only a single pelt between me and my divan of crystal ice. For a man bred and born in so cold a country as the land of the Culticorps, Bullybrain had an extremely quick and active mind. On account of his rapid heartbeat and the consequent high temperature of his body, he was not able to do his writing on slabs of ice, as other learned Culticorps had done, for it would not have the pleasant thing for him to see a poem which he had just finished, literally melt away in his hands, without so much as leaving an ink stain behind. So he had been obliged, with King Gildas' permission, to do his writing on thin tablets of alabaster. Before he began to talk with me about the progenitors of the Coltiquerps, he showed me a map of the country in the upper world, once inhabited by them, and traced for me the course they had sailed upon, abandoning that country, and described the beautiful shores that they had landed upon in their search for a new home. I saw at a glance that it was Greenland which Bully Brain was thus unconsciously describing, and knowing as I did that in the past ages Greenland had been a land of blue skies, warm meadows, warm winds, green meadows, and fertile valleys before moving mountains of ice came down from the north and crushed all the life out of it. I listened with breathless interest to his wonderful tales of its beautiful lakes nestled at the foot of the vine-clad mountains, all of which Bully Brain now looked upon in fair visions inherited from his ancestors. And I also knew that it must have been the Arctic Ocean, which had been traversed by the ships of the Coltiquerps, who had then landed upon, in those days, sunny shores of northern Russia. But the mountains of ice could sail too, and they followed the fleeing Coltiquerps like mighty monsters, dashing themselves with terrible roar, and crashed upon the peaceful shores, which they soon transformed into a wilderness of berg and glacier and floe. Only a handful of the Coltiquerps survived, and these, in their dumb despair, taking refuge in the clefts and caverns of the North Earls, could, from their hiding places, look upon one of the strangest sights that had ever greeted human eyes. So rapid had been the advance of these mighty masses of ice, crashing against the mountainsides and rendering the very rocks in their fury, that the air gave up its warmth, and the sun was powerless to give it back again. The animals of the wild wood and the beasts of the field, overtaken in their flight, perished as they ran and stood there stark and stiff, with heads uptossed and muscles knotted. Then, by the thousands, and 10 times thousands, the crushed crystals of the pursuing floods, caught up like moss and leaves in a mountain torrent, and packed in every cave and cavern on the way, tearing broader and loftier portals into the subterranean chambers, so that they might do their work the better. And these, then, O Bully Brain, are your meat quarries, I exclaimed, whence ye draw your daily food. Even so, little Baron replied, the hot-headed Coltiquerps, and not only our food, but the skins which serve us so admirably for clothing in this cold underground world, and the oil, too, for which burns in our beautiful alabaster lamps, besides 100 other things, such as bone for halves and handles horn needles, and buttons and eating utensils, wool for the weaving of our undergarments, and magnificent pelts of bear and seal and walrus, which, laid upon our benches and divans of crystal ice, transform them into beds and couches, which even an inhabitant of the world might envy. Or thy, excuse me. But, oh, Bully Brain, I cried out, have ye not almost exhausted these supplies? Will not death from starvation soon stare ye all in the face in these deep and icy caverns, if of the underworld, visited by the sun's light, yet unwarmed by it? Nay, little Baron, answered Bully Brain, with a smile almost as warm as one of my own. Let not that thought give thee a moment's alarm, for we have as yet barely raised the lid of this ice box of nature's packing. We are not large eaters anyway, continued Lord Hothead. For while it is true that we are not indolent people, for his frigid majesty's palace and our dwellings need constant repair, and new hatchets and axes must be chipped out in the flint quarries, and new lamps carved, and new garments woven. Yet it's also true that we take life rather easy. We have no enemies to slay, no quarrels to settle, no gold to fight over, no land to drive our fellow creatures from and fence in, nor can we be ill if we were willing to be. For in this pure, cold, crisp air, disease would try in vain to sow her poison germs. Hence, needing no doctors, we have none, as we have no lawyers either, or merchants to sell us what belongs to us already. His frigid majesty is an excellent king. I never read of a better one. I doubt that his like exists in the upper world. Always cool-headed, no thought of conquest, no dreams of power, no longings for empty pomp and show ever in his mind. Since the day his father died, and we set the great crown of crystal upon his cool brow, his temperature has never risen but a half a degree, and that was only for a brief hour or so, and was occasioned by a mad proposal of one of his counselors, who claimed that he had discovered an explosive compound, something like the gunpowder of thy world, I fancy, by which he could shatter the glorious window of the rock crystal set in the mountain dome of our underworld, and let in warm sunshine. Did his frigid majesty Glydas put this daring Qualtiquerp to death? I asked. Oh, dear, no, replied Bully Brain. He merely ordered him to be refrigerated for so many hours a day until all his feverish projects had been chilled to death. For no doubt, little Baron, a man of thy deep learning knows full well that all the ills which thy world suffers from are the children of fevered brains, of minds made restless and visionary by high temperatures of the blood, which gallops through the approaches to the dome of thought, stirring up wild dreams and visions as thy sun lifts the poisonous vapor from the stagnant pool. The more I listened to Bully Brain, the more I liked him. The fact of the matter is, I preferred to sit in his narrow cell with its plain walls of ice lighted up by a single alabaster lamp, and converse with him, to loitering in the splendid throne room of his frigid majesty King Glydas. But Bulgar had discovered that the pelts of Princess Shaniboul's divan were much thicker, softer, and warmer than the single one allowed Lord Hothead, and therefore he preferred spending his time with her. But fearing lest he might get into mischief, I didn't dare to leave him alone with the princess too long at the time. Okay, well, that's it for this chapter. Until we meet again, thanks for listening. Bye.